Hello, welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Wicked. Chapter 3 of The Murder in Its Afterlife. Colwyn Grounds was draped in black swags and purple bunting. When the witch arrived, she was greeted by a one-man less than welcoming committee, a bearded munchkin lander named Nip, who seemed to be concierge, janitor, and acting prime minister. Your lineage no longer allows you any particular liberties in Munchkin Land, she was told. With the death of Nessarose, the honorific of eminence is last abolished. The witch didn't care, but she wasn't inclined to accept a unilateral dictum without a retort. She answered, "It's abolished when I accept that is abolished." Not that the honorific had been much use in recent years, according to occasional rambling letter from Frex. Nessarose had begun to be amused by the slur "Wicked Witch of the East," and considered it a public penance worthy of a person with such a high moral standing. She even took to referring to herself as such. Nip showed her to her room. "I don't need much," said the Wicked Witch of the West, as in contrast she allowed herself to be called, at least by these Munchkinlander upstarts. "A bed for a couple days. I'd like to see my father and attend the service. I'll collect a few things and I'll be off now." "Now, do you know if our brother Shell will be there?" "Shell has disappeared again," said Nip. "He left his regards. There is mission he is undertaking the Glickus. It can't wait. Some of us he is defecting, worried about a change in government here now that the tyrant is dead. As well as he might, he'll be added coldly. Have you fresh towels?" "I don't use them," said the witch. "It's all right. Go away now." She was very tired and sad. At 63, Frex was even balder, and his beard wider than he had been last time. His shoulders hunched in as if trying to meet each other. His head sank into natural cavity made by the deteriorating spine and neck. He even sat covered by a blanket on the veranda. "And who is this?" he said when the witch came up and sat next to him. She realized his sight had nearly been gone for good. "It's your other daughter, Papa," she said, "the other one that's left." "Fabala," he said, "what will I do without my pretty Nessarose? How will I live without my pet?" She held his hand until he fell asleep and wiped his face through his tears burned her skin. The liberated Munchkinlanders were destroying the house. The witch had no use for frippery, but seemed ashamed to waste such a property this way. Desecration was so short-sighted. Didn't they know that? However, now that they decided to live, Colwyn Grounds should be their parliamentary building. She spent time with her father, but they didn't speak much. One morning, when they were more alert and energetic than usual, he asked her if she was really a witch. "Oh, well, what's a witch? Who has ever trusted language in the family?" she replied. "Father, will you look at something for me?" "Will you tell me what you will see?" She withdrew from her inner pocket page from the grimoire as she unfolded it like a large napkin on his lap. He ran his hands over it as if he could pick up meaning through his fingertips and then held it near, peering and squinting. "What do you see?" she asked. "Can you tell me the nature of this writing? Is it good or for ill?" "The markings are crisp enough and large. I ought to be able to make it out." He turned it upside down. "But little Fabala, I can't read this alphabet. Is it in a foreign tongue? Can you?" "Well, sometimes I seem to be able to, but the talent is fleeting," said the witch. "I don't know if it's my eyes or it's the manuscript that's being tricky." "You always had strong eyes," said her father. "Even as a toddler, you could see things no one else could." "Huh," she said. "I don't know what you mean." You had a looking glass that sweet turtle heart made for you, and you looked in as if you see other worlds, other times. I was probably looking at myself, but they knew that wasn't true, and Frex for once said so. You didn't look at yourself, he said. You hated to. You hated your skin, your sharp features, your strange eyes. Where did I learn that hate? She asked. You were born knowing it, he said. It was a curse. You were born to curse my life. He patted her hand affectionately, as if he didn't mean much by this. When you lost your weird baby teeth, and your second teeth came in normally, we all relaxed a little, but for the first couple of years, until Nessarose was born, you were a little beast. Only when saintly Nessarose was delivered to us, even more scarred than you, did you settle down like a normal child. Why was I cursed to be different, she said. You are a holy man. You must know. You are my fault, he said. Despite his words, he was somehow pinning blame on her instead of himself, though she still wasn't clever enough to see how this was done. For what I have failed to do, you were born to plague me. But don't worry about it now, he added. That's all long ago. And Nessarose, she asked, how do the weights and balances of shame and guilt account for her? She is a portrait of the lax morals of your mother, Frex said calmly. And that's why you loved her so much, said the witch. Because her frailty wasn't your fault. Don't stew, you always stewed, Frex said. And now she is dead, so what does it matter? My life is still running on. But mine is running out, he said sadly. So he put his hand back on his lap and kissed him gently, and folding up the page of the Grimoire and tucked in her pocket. Then she turned to greet the person approaching them across the lawn. Thought it was such a tea. Frex was still according a measure of service, due to his age and mildness, and she supposed his vocation. But she stood still and pressed down the front of her homespun black skirt when she saw who it was. Miss Glinda of the Arduanas, she said, her heart turning. Oh, you came. I knew you would, said Glinda. Miss Ulva, the last true eminent Tharop, no matter what they say. Glinda approached slowly, either through age or shyness, or because her ridiculous gown weighed so much it was hard for her to get up enough to stride. She looked like a huge Glinda berry bush, was all the witch could think. Under that skirt there must be a bustle the size of the dome of St. Florix. There were sequins and fur bellows and a sort of history of Oz. It seemed to Trapino 6 or 7 ovoid panels all over on the skirting. But beneath her face, beneath the powdered skin, the wrinkles at the eyelid mouth, was all the timid schoolgirl from Pertha Hills. You haven't changed a whit, said Glinda. Is this your father? The witch nodded, but shushed her. Frex had dropped off again. Come on, we'll walk the gardens before the root up the roses out of some benighted attempt at eradicating justice. The witch took Glinda's arm. Glinda, you look hideous in that getup. I thought you'd developed some sense by now. When in the provinces, she said, you have to show them a little style. I don't think it's so bad. Or the satin bells at the shoulder a bit too excessive, agreed the witch. Someone get the scissors. This is a disaster. They laughed. My dear, what? They've gone to this grand old place, said Glinda. Look, the pediments are meant his court, graven arms, and these revolutionary slogans are painted all over the exquisite belvedere. I hope you'll have something done, Elfie. There isn't a belvedere to match the capital of the world. I've never had the love of architecture that you did, Glinda, said Witch. I just read the slogan, she walked all over us. Why shouldn't they paint over her belvedere? In fact, if she did in fact walked all over them. Tyrants come and go. Belvederes are forever, said Glinda. I can't recommend the top-notch stores the moment you ask. I hear you were one of the first on the scene, said the witch. When Nessarose died, how did that come to be? Sir Chuffrey, my hubby, he has some invest in some pork futures, you know, and Munchkin Landers is trying to testify its economic base at the mercy of Gillikin Banks and the Emerald City Corn Exchange. You ever know what relationship might develop between Munchkin Lands and the rest of Oz? And it's best to be prepared. So when Chuffrey does business, I do good. It's a partnership made in heaven. You know, I have made more money than I can give away. She giggled and squeezed the witch's arm. I never imagined that doing public charity would provide such a rush. So you're here in Munchkin Land. Yes, I have been at an orphanage on the shores of Mossmere, and for a lark I'd give the game park. They have dragons there now. I've never seen a dragon, so I was scarcely a dozen miles away when the storm hit. We have terrible winds over there. I cannot imagine having a ceremony could have been such a progress in Center Munch. In Mossmere, there were sections of park closed and visitors due to the fear of falling trees and escaping animals. Oh, so they call it a game park with animals, said the witch. You must go, dear. It's a lark. Well, as I was saying, the house came right out of the blue, and I suppose I mean that literally. If they sensed a big storm, they surely have canceled this event and run for cover. Anyway, the news system is very advanced now in parts of Munchkin Land. Nessarose herself oversaw a system of beacons and tick-tock code signals to warn invasion from here, Wizard and points west. So it was only a matter of minutes before the news was being flashed in all directions. I commandeered a mature phoenix and asked her to bring me the center of Munch, and arrived before most of the locals had figured out what I had hit them. Tell me about it, said the witch. You'd be pleased to hear there was no blood. I ventured to guess there was a massive internal injuries, but there was no blood. Of course, Nessarose's last few devoted followers thought this meant her spirit was taken intact and that she had suffered little. I don't imagine she suffered much. Not though with that clink of a noggin. Her more unhappy subjects, who were in greater number, thought it a droll act of Lurlenia, releasing them from Nessarose's particular sort of fundamentalist bondage. There were rivalry when I arrived, and much fetting of the funny girl and the dog who seemed to have lived in the house. Oh, who's that? Said the witch, who hadn't heard this part. Well, you know how the Munchkinlanders bow and scrape no matter how their democratic inclinations. No sooner had I arrived that they deferred me, introducing me as a witch. I tried to correct them. A sorceress is really much more apt, but never mind. I was in no doubt the outfit that cowed them. I was in much salmon pink fantasy that day, and it really suited me. Go on, said the witch, who had never really liked to talk about clothes. Well, the witch child introduced herself. Dorothy from Kansas. I didn't know the place and said as much. She appeared as much surprised as anyone else about what had happened. She had that nasty little pooch yapping about her heels. Tata or Toto or something. Toto. So this Dorothy was in some stage of shock, I can tell you. A fairly homely little girl with a little fashion sense. I suppose that comes later in life for some than others. She glanced sideways at the witch. Much later in some cases, and they both chuckled at that. Dorothy supposed she should come back from her home, but as she couldn't remember having studied anything about Oz in school, nor could I recall a place called Kansas. We decided she should look elsewhere. The fickle Munchkinlanders seemed ready to nominate her as Nessie's successor, which would have angered Nip and all those ministers in coal and grounds who have spent their careers jockeying for position, and Nessarose ever saw fit to die. Besides, there may be other developments afoot. Dorothy might have gotten this way. And I'm going to stop it right there, and I will see you later. Bye.